Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
It's not the greatest country in the world.
Finally, really did it. You maniac! I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore! You bring them death, and they will love him for it.
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Hello, friends and enemies, and welcome to another episode of Recovery from Politics podcast. I am your host, Kyle Frame, and today is Monday, November 25th, 2024. So just this morning, I discovered the owner of the LA Times is actually South African. I'm going to screw up the name. I apologize in advance. I've never heard it said before. I'm just reading it. So Patrick Soon-Shiong is 72 years old, grew up during South African apartheid, grew up there, left in the 1980s for a degree in Canada, and then Los Angeles to train as a surgeon. He's worth about $6 billion and owns the LA Times. He was one of the first owners of a newspaper to refuse to endorse a candidate for president. It was leaked shortly afterwards that his editors were about to endorse Kamala Harris. Soon-Shiong says the two main reasons for a non-endorsement were that his editors didn't get a face-to-face with either candidate, and that both candidates support the genocide in Gaza. Never mind, he has actively sought out a cabinet position from Trump in his first term, and is already congratulating Trump on his cabinet picks this time around. I'll just say that fascism wins when people choose neutrality. Oh, I don't want to get involved, or politics is just too divisive, is just code to me that you're okay with fascism and authoritarianism. More people did not vote in 2024 than did. We can cry all we want about the racists who re-elected Trump, but we have a much larger issue of people opting out because they're okay with fascism. Soon-Shiong's editorial choice is emblematic of this. I'm going to go ahead and say he knows a non-endorsement was actually a kind of endorsement. An endorsement of fascism, an endorsement of Trumpism, an endorsement of Project 2025. And, I find it very odd that now I know three different men with ties to South Africa who played non-insignificant roles in getting Trump reelected. We know about Elon Musk. Peter Thiel is another one. While he isn't South African by birth, he went to school there during what we would call his formative years. All three left South Africa around the time apartheid was coming to an end. So I have a little bit of a thought experiment. Imagine you hate the way this country is going and you have the means to move on. Any country in the world will take you. Which one goes on your list? If you're afraid of communism, China, North Korea, and Cuba likely are not going to be on that list. Subsequently, if you're afraid of authoritarianism, Russia isn't going to be on your bingo card. The point is, you'd likely choose a country that has politics similar to your own. Or, if you're wealthy, ambitious, and a little mischievous, a country whose politics you can exploit. So I find it telling. All three of these men decided to leave South Africa within the same time period, and their chosen destination was the United States. We all kind of poke fun at Argentina for all the Germans who immigrated there after World War II. Now, I know what that says about them. This talk of Patrick Soon-Shiong being some kind of self-made billionaire is all horseshit. There's no such thing as a self-made billionaire. Soon-Shiong, for example, used university funding from the government to patent his cancer drugs that he turned into a biomedical corporate giant. Don't give me the he did it all by himself nonsense. But what does this say about us? Adolf Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf about how he wanted to emulate the southern United States. He thought Jim Crow was swell, and he hoped to copy that in Germany. Obviously, he took it a few steps further, but not by much. Now we have former apartheid South Africans in position of wealth and status very close to the president-elect and vice president-elect. And if you're telling me, but Kyle, these relationships are casual and you're making a big deal out of nothing, I'd say you're being generous, but also to tell that to Barack Obama's relationship with community organizer Saul Alinsky, his pastor Jeremiah Wright, or Bill Ayers, former leader of the Weather Underground. If those were fair targets against Barack Obama, then I think Patrick Soon-Shiong, Elon Musk, and Peter Thiel are all fair game. In other news, which gets my blood boiling, the Washington Post reported over the weekend that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, somehow still a senator and somehow still in Democratic leadership, hits his recent silence is intentional. It's a strategy, you see. I've heard it before, and I think you have too. When your opponent is self-imploding, you let them. The idea behind it is simple. If you attack, you risk uniting the dividing party. They'll stop focusing on themselves and start focusing on the outside threat. And right now, with every new cabinet nominee from the Orange God King and the constant drip of new horrible things these people have done, the Democrats are mostly silent. They're not defending one of their newest congressional colleagues from anti-trans bigots. They're not really trying to push through new rules to try and stall the incoming authoritarian regime. They're not really doing much of anything. And how do you know they're doing badly? AOC and John fucking Fetterman are on the same page trying to defend Sarah McBride when no one else is. It's a cold day in hell when I am one of the people congratulating John Fetterman for anything. I mean, I don't think he's the ally some people are making him out to be, but he's doing something right now, so okay, congrats. Now, during the Orange God King's first term, I would agree with this strategy. The press wasn't scared of him. The Republican Party still had a little fight left in them. We didn't have a billionaire tech bro who would amplify everything he does on one of the largest social media sites on the planet. There was still room to believe that MAGA and the Republican Party were two separate entities, or that MAGA only occupied a small corner of the room within the party. Hell, I once predicted that the Republican Party would cut ties and try to force him to resign as soon as possible, with Mitch McConnell leading the charge. After all, they had Mike Pence in the vice president's seat. Pence wasn't about to throw all of their agenda out the window to pursue some petty argument in the White House press room, but that was then. We have a man who was impeached for trying to exploit an ally. He remained in office. We have a man who faced no pushback for suggesting there were very fine people on both sides of a Nazi rally. We have a man who literally led a coup against his own government, putting a lot of those same Republican lives in danger, was impeached for it and found not guilty. At every turn during his first term as president and his exodus from the White House these last 4 years, the Orange God King's support from inside the Republican Party has never wavered. At this point, MAGA and the Republican Party isn't just the same thing. There is no Republican Party. It's all MAGA now. Every one of them, even Mitt Romney and Mitch McConnell. They'll talk shit behind his back, maybe even to his face, but every bill presented will be voted for by both of them. So no, I don't agree with this let's be silent and let them self-immolate strategy. Quite frankly, coming from Chuck Schumer, I tend to believe his real thoughts are, I don't know what to do, and ordered one of his aides to go leak that it was actually him playing four-dimensional chess instead of being nearly as old as both the current president and the president-elect. And while we're on it, for fuck's sake, the Democratic Party's biggest complaint from across the political spectrum, especially from me, is that they don't do anything. They don't do anything when they're in power, and they don't do anything when they're out of power. They're the only political party in the world whom we gave a 60-seat supermajority in the Senate and fought their own members to keep their legislation as lukewarm and half-assed as possible. I really don't think now is the time to lean into that criticism. So what do I want? I want them to be loud. And you can be loud in two ways. You can be loud in acquiescence. Every chance you get, every time a microphone is shoved in your face, every time you're on the record, tell everyone you can't believe what's going on, but the American people wanted this, so you're going along with it. Who are you to judge the wisdom of the American people? I don't care if millions are dying from the oncoming bird flu pandemic. You say repeatedly, over and over again, the American people wanted this. If the American people don't want this, they should maybe pay attention and vote next time for something different. But in the meantime, this is what they wanted. It's a cabinet hearing. Don't ask any questions. Take your 5 minutes and just rant about all the batshit crazy stuff the nominee in front of you and the one about to walk back into the White House has said or done. Finish with, but this is what the American people wanted. They voted for this, and who am I to judge the will of the voters? I will vote to confirm this nominee. I yield my time. Asking questions whether or not Pam Bondi thinks the 2020 election was stolen won't tell us jack shit. It won't swing any voters. All 53 Republicans will vote in favor of all of the nominees. Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski aren't going to be the only two Republican no votes when the nominees are all going to sail through. That's just bad politics. Whether they like Trump or not, eventually they're going to want to add an amendment or a rider to one of his bills. And them voting down all his cabinet nominees in losing efforts isn't going to earn them any goodwill, nor political capital to spend later. It's in their own best interests to vote yay on every one of them. So you're a Democrat in one of those hearings. Don't vote no. Don't ask questions. Just take the time to remind the American people that this is what they wanted. This is what they voted for. Don't even bring up the contrast in Kamala Harris. Just focus on Trump and his loyalists and everything they've done. Then pass it on. Even if it's on the Senate floor and it's a debate on putting the illegal immigrants into concentration camps, but that they'll be made to work in the fields, vote in favor of it. Take your 2 minutes to say the whole thing is horrible, that people will die, that it's inhumane and against what you stand for, and then promptly at the end, announce you'll vote in favor of it because this is what the voters wanted. Otherwise, be loud in opposition. Attack constantly, daily, hourly, every minute. Don't wait for the press to find you. Go to them. Scream at them. Get them to run the stories on your narrative, which is that fascism is alive and well in America. It is happening here, right now. Every bill, every appointment, go on the offensive. Every tweet from the Orange God King should have 47 senators and 212 House members retweeting it with the same message. This is outrageous. Oh, look, they're self-immolating. Good. How can I help them do it some more? Attack Trump. Attack all his enablers. Attack Bush for not endorsing. Attack the billionaires who back him. Attack, attack, attack. Fight on every front. Never cede your ground to fascists. Don't let them say anything without a complete rebuttal incoming. It's fine if you need to go to blue sky to avoid the bots and Nazis. We're normal people. But the career politicians, we elected you to attack. So we expect you to fucking do it. Is there a Democratic governor who is like, RFK Jr. is right on a few things, actually? Not anymore, there isn't. I want Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, and every other Democratic nominee and elected official shouting them down at how stupid they are. Use the word Quisling so much the word spikes in Google searches around the world. And if they don't back down, I want the DNC to cut off their funding. Announce they will be seeking out a different nominee to primary the fuck out of them in the next election. Specifically, this also is going to include world leaders, from Bibi Netanyahu to Viktor Orban, from Vladimir Putin to Kim Jong-un. Any world leader decides to step up for Trump had better receive a harsh rebuke from the entirety of the Democratic Party. You're taking names and keeping score. You remind them constantly that everything is cyclical and one day they will be back in power. And the second they are, they're going to start acting like the worst versions the right has ever projected. The American people wanted some good old retribution. They ain't seen nothing yet.
End of line.